We need to come up with like some fun, cool, exciting intro.
I agree. I feel like we need a jingle.
A jingle. I don't know about a jingle.
I know someone that writes jingles.
You can take the jingle. Not sure I'm one to deliver that jingle.
Yeah, but I'll make you sing it.
If you asked me how many songs I could sing the lyrics to, the answer would be 0.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, I could sing the wrong words.
that's the Irish in you.
Yeah, okay. Appreciate that.
That's what Irish folks do. We just keep singing with the melody and we're like, it'll blend eventually. I'll get it right. All right. I think we are officially live.
We're going to need to get a guest who can come on. And well, when can Ben come on and sing for us?
Probably next week.
All right.
Are we rolling in between New Year's and Christmas?
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't taken off.
We are rolling today.
Yep.
So, and good news for everybody else. We sound a lot better than we did last week.
Well, I think you're speaking for yourself, but thanks.
I hope you feel better.
Me too.
You're right. I am speaking for myself. Anybody who's just joining us now and who hasn't joined us before, we are here to discuss a book review of the MREA book, which is Millionaire Real Estate Agent. The book was written by Gary Keller, who is the owner-founder of Keller Williams Realty. And the book really breaks down a business plan and business models for a real estate agent to grow their own business inside of Keller Williams organization or any other brokerage for that matter. But it gives them business models and a business plan in order to grow their real estate business to any really level that they're looking for. It's called the Millionaire Real Estate Agent model because it puts together an operations model and a business plan to get agents to $1 million in net commissions. And then appropriately in the book, they call these out at different levels. So level 1 is yourself. Level 2 is yourself and an assistant. And then all the way up to level 7, which is you as an agent with a team running a business that would net $1 million per year annually. So with all that being said, Brittany, is there anything that you want to share with us before we get started? One of the models that we're covering today is the lead generation model. So we're going to spend the majority of today talking about lead generation, right, Brittany?
Yep. Today is focused on the lead gen model, which I think lead generation tends to kind of be like a curse word to some real estate agents, right? They don't like it just as much as they hate the word scripts. But the fact of the matter is your lead genning, it might not be cold calling, which I think is what that's their first thought when they hear lead gen. They just think that they're blind calling a bunch of people all the time. But what I like about lead generation is there's a lot of different ways you could lead gen. And really lead generation and the economic model, they go hand in hand. So like if the economic model is your vehicle, the lead generation model is the fuel that gets it going. That's how I like to look at it. Gary Keller used that in his book, and that's just the visual that I've kept in my mind to help me understand why it's so important to do that each day. But really our business is a lead generation business. All businesses have to market in some way, shape, or form. Whether you're a doctor's office, you're selling windows, you're selling houses, you're a store trying to get new clients, there's always a form of lead generation So you just have to take cold calling out of your head. Like it's not just cold calling. There's so much more to what lead generation really means.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hopefully by the end of today, we're able to show people that your lead generation model is not somebody else's lead generation model. And if there's 2,100 agents roughly in Greater Harrisburg Area Association of Realtors, I can almost guarantee you that none of those agents' lead generation model is the same.
Right.
And then what's really cool about it when we teach this in class is we take what folks are really, really good at and where they've gotten leads in the past, and then we're able to just tweak that a little bit in order to get them to their goals versus saying, hey, here's a lead generation plan that you should do because it works for other people.
Right.
So I'm hoping that that's what everybody gets out of this today is that when you look at a lead generation plan, it's really customized to you and it's fun and exciting if you make it lead generation with areas of the business that you actually love and enjoy. You know, some examples might be events, pop buys. A pop buy is when you take a small gift and you drop it off to one of your clients just to show them that they care or that you care. Holiday pies, things like that. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have cold calling, circle prospecting, Facebook ads, internet leads, all those things.
Yep.
So we have a lot to dig into.
We do. It's a big model because there are so many options.
Yeah. Well, and what's really cool is we're going to use this term, and I'll show you the slide. But we always say here that your lead generation is prospecting based and marketing enhanced. I think a lot of people believe that you go and do marketing and you're going to get a lot of leads, and that's your lead generation.
Right.
But we, in fact, have to focus most of our attention on prospecting, which means, here, I'll pull up the slide. And hopefully I'm not just running off with this and taking away all of your questions, because I know you did a good job.
Don't worry, I keep us on task.
And I'll try not to ramble too much. Oh, there we are. So let me get to the right slide here. This I love because it gives you some examples. And we briefly covered this in one of our previous lives. If anybody's just joining us now and you haven't seen our previous lives, definitely go back and watch them there on the Keller Williams of Central PA page, where we walked through what business models are, why are they important, how to get started in business planning. And over the last two Facebook Lives, now we're starting to dive down to analyze each individual business model. Last week, we covered the economic model. This week, we're covering the lead generation model. And in lead generation, what I just mentioned before was being prospecting based and marketing enhanced allows you to have a lot more control over your expenses if you're going to be prospecting based, because it doesn't cost a lot of money. You're also going to get immediate results because you can keep prospecting until you get a result. When you put out marketing and you wait for the result, you don't oftentimes know when it's going to come. You also don't know what the measurable amount of response is, let's say off of a mailer, unless you've done it 50 times before. So what I like about this graphic at the bottom is being prospecting based gives you more control over your results. It also gives you more control over, pardon me. It gives you more control over how soon you can get those results. So I know it says immediate results. It sounds like I said that twice. Let me break that down. One is, so have you ever had a goal, Brittany, where you sit down and you say, I'm not going to stop until I hit the goal?
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yep.
That does not apply to marketing unless you want to spend a ton of money, and a lot of it will be wasteful because you're going to keep spending it before the results come in. So that's one area, that's one example of immediate results. The other example is when I call and I get a referral, I'm really looking for the person that referral that needs to do something now. So the person I'm getting in contact with, it's more timely. Like if I call, let's say my past clients, and I ask for a referral and I say, hey, we have some pretty lofty goals for next year. And well, first, obviously it's a personal conversation. You're asking if you can help them in any way. And then at the end of the conversation, it's your turn to ask if they can help you. And you just simply say, do you know anybody who's looking to buy, sell, or invest in the next 3 months? You have control over the immediacy or urgency of that. And really what you're looking for is they're not likely to refer somebody to you that's looking to move a year from now. Do you often sit down with your friends and family and say, hey, like, we're planning on moving in 2024.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't generally have those conversations. So the people you're prospecting to, if they've had a conversation with somebody who's looking to buy or sell, chances are it was recently.
Yeah.
Now let's flip that around and go to the marketing side. On the marketing side, when I market for leads, or people that go on the internet, and let's say it comes from Zillow, or if I send a postcard that says how much the neighbor's house sold for, contact us to know what your home would sell for, the responses from that marketing are generally way out in advance. They want to know what their home is worth a year before they sell it, or 6 months before they sell it.
Yep.
So you don't have control. Again, generally the time frame for those responses between when they make the response and when they actually take action on needing your services, that time frame is longer. And then also you have little control over when they respond to you. Hopefully they keep that postcard for a long time and respond when they need it. But in general, you don't control their behavior. So I'll move on from this. One thing I want everybody to understand is prospecting is any activity that you do that's high impact and direct contact. I think too often people think that prospecting is picking up the phone and calling and asking for a referral. Let's give them some other examples that do not require cold calling. Events.
I love the events. Events and pop-bys were like two of my favorite ones when I was in production.
Events and pop buys are high impact, direct contact. Do you care to elaborate on the high impact direct contact?
Yeah, so face-to-face is just the most impactful because a lot of it, we prospect and market to gain mind share, right? We know a lot of people, we have a lot of things going on in our world. There's so much marketing being thrown at us as humans every single day. So our brains filter through all that material and oftentimes throw a lot of it out because we just got too much going on, especially with social media. We are hit all the time with advertisements.
Yeah.
So there's a study that was done that says like 86% of sellers and buyers only have room in their minds for 1 to 2 real estate agents, which is crazy because there's like 2,000 just in our general central PA region. So you're fighting against those other 2,000 agents to gain that mind share.
Yep.
Voice to voice is helpful. So if you're calling, they hear your voice, it impacts them in a certain way. But if they see you, they interact with you in person, you have an engaging conversation, you have a real connection with that person a couple times a year, you're definitely ahead of the game at gaining that mind share. Which is why I personally, I loved events and I loved pop buys because I could talk to a lot of people in a meaningful way, get that face to face. And it was normally something touching, like it ended up making their day, even though I was just dropping off a little pumpkin. But the way I made them feel helped them remember me then in 6 months when their cousin had to buy a house. That's what worked for my business.
Yeah, that's really good. When I think of high impact direct contact, what I think of is you've provided them some kind of value, right?
Yeah.
A pop by, you're dropping off some kind of gift, a guide, could be anything. And then there's the reciprocity that comes with that. So, if you're dropping off, let's say a pie, like it's a gift, right?
Yep.
And it means to your point, it means more than the phone call. You were more thoughtful, you put more effort into it. You got to spend more time face to face talking to them for a little bit. The events, very similar. You've provided entertainment for their family. You've provided it again. Usually there's in an event, usually there's some kind of giveaway or education or entertainment. So you've impacted them in a way that others who have sent them mail, called them on the phone, have not done. So it's a higher impact.
Yep.
Great segue. What was your next question?
My next question, and this is actually one I struggled with as an agent. Poor Dave Hook had to deal with my pushback. A lot of agents focus on getting quality leads. However, Gary Keller explains in MREA that although your conversion rates are very important, the number of leads you generate is even more critical. So can you explain the numbers game a little bit? I know you'd play this game very well with your other business, with your postcards, and like you're just constantly generating leads. One, as an agent, I would push back all the time and be like, well, I want higher quality leads. Like, I don't want to call these cold leads. I'd rather go do face-to-face all day and try to get higher quality leads. So I remember what that feeling was like.
Mm-hmm.
And yet after reading MREA and then listening to Dave have to repeatedly tell me a bunch of times that it is truly a numbers game of getting that conversion from contact to client.
Yeah, so it's a great question. And if you think about it, the simple way to put it is strength in numbers. So if you're looking at, so there's a saying, it's like shooting fish in a barrel, right?
Okay, that's a new one.
What if there's only one fish in the barrel? Is it still easy to shoot the fish in the barrel?
No.
It's a little bit easier, but that's still hard. If the barrel's full of fish with piece of cake, now it's shooting fish in a barrel. Silly example, but I think it paints the picture. The other way to look at it, and I know we're talking about lead generation, but in business coaching, a lot of times we're teaching folks that everybody wants to focus on their gross revenue or total sales volume. I want to be at 10 million. Wouldn't everybody want to sell 10 houses at $1 million a piece to get to 10 million? Everybody would want to do that. I only have to sell 10 houses now instead of 50.
Right. Why not?
However, that there's going to be a point where some of those transactions fall through. Okay. That goes back to the economic model. We don't close on 100% of our leads. We don't get clients out of 100% of our contacts. There's conversions all the way through. So if I'm banking my whole entire business plan on 10 homes instead of 50 to get to 10 million, what are the chances that I don't hit my goal because one fell through or two fell through, right? If two fall through on my 50 unit plan, I'm still at 48. If two fall through on my 10 unit plan to get to 10 million, I'm at 8 million. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So it's just another example how there's strength in numbers. So instead, in business coaching, what we have folks center their attention on is their unit goal and then use an average sale price with the number of units that is going to get you to your gross commission goal. because you have a lot more control over the number of units than you do at a larger number than you do at a smaller, at 10. You have a lot more control to get to 50. I don't want to dive down a rabbit hole there, but there's strength in numbers in hitting your goal. So the same thing goes for lead generation. It would be great if we could rely on 3 referral sources to feed our entire business. But someday one of those referral sources is going to go away or not meet your expectations. And now you're at 2/3 a goal. Let me show you a picture that I think might describe it a little bit better.
Yeah, that is very helpful.
You see this?
Yep. The rule of 4.
The rule of 4. But here's what's interesting. So the rule of 4 is that 80% or greater of your business comes from 4 lead sources, which is so true. And in a minute, I'll cover why it's important to have 4 when most people only have 1 or 2.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you look across the bottom here, you can see that you have, so along the left-hand side is the percentage of your transactions. Along the bottom would represent your number of lead sources. So lead source number 1 generated 41% of my business last year, as an example. Lead source number 2 generated 20% of my business last year. Lead source number 3, 12%. Lead source number 4, 9%. But here's what you have to realize. What does 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 add up to? You have 6, 10, 15, 23% of your business, if I added those up correctly. Let's say it's 20% of your business. So if I don't focus on more than 4 lead sources, I'm going to be short on 20% of my business right out of the gate. So it's important to know that 80% comes from 4 sources, but it's also important to know what Gary Keller is saying is that the strength in the number of lead sources gets me to 100% of my goal. That was way better than I described it the first time.
The graphic helps.
The graphic helps.
The graphic
Definitely helps me.
Yeah.
So what do you have to add?
The beauty of that is too, is the more people that you work with, the more transactions you do, like you said, it doesn't hurt as much if a deal falls through. No one likes that, right? Like, no, it's not you don't do all that work for a termination. And yet, when you get to the level where you have so many leads coming in, those terminations don't ruin your day. It's just another bump in the road, a hurdle you got to get over, but it doesn't prevent you from doing all the other things you need to do because it doesn't hurt you mentally. Like I remember when I first got in the business and a deal terminated, it was a big deal, you know, because I only had a small bit to work with. And I'm like, I needed that money. And when you get out of that mindset of not having to need it so bad, I feel like you're actually able to be better for your clients because you're thinking less clouded.
Yeah.
You know, you're more clear and you're more focused on them, which is our job. But it's human when you're young in the business and you need that business. It's natural to kind of start thinking about yourself. So I just think strength in numbers isn't just about reaching your goal, but it's also about being a better agent.
That's a great point. Okay, I'm going to piggyback right on top of that. Stability.
Yeah.
The strength in numbers gives you stability. What if your number 2 lead source was Zillow and then Zillow leads go away and you don't have these other lead sources here? Or even if you were running a great business only focused on 4, you've lost a whole leg on your stool.
Yep.
So the strength in numbers provides stability in your business, stability in this case in your lead generation model. Now, let me just speak briefly about the rule of 4 and why 4 is important. Because to be honest with you, most of the people that we coach and we talk to, they don't have a 10 lead source problem. Meaning they don't have a problem they know what lead sources are out there and where they can go to generate leads. Most of them are focused on too few lead sources. It's not that they're focused on too many. And what I see most oftentimes is that folks are relying on 100% of their business comes from Sphere. 75% of their business comes from Sphere, and then they have, let's say Facebook ads as 25% of their business. Okay. With those numbers, you're very susceptible to not hitting your goals, because if you go back to that triangle, you now have control over like the urgency, and you can get leads immediately, but it's all based on your time. And if you're not able to generate leads coming in, or you don't have a balance of marketing and prospecting, then your ability to grow is going to be inhibited. Sphere provides predictability, because you can go to your Sphere and you can prospect for leads. But oftentimes, if you're trying to grow the business, it's going to be hard to scale it. It has a ceiling to it, right? So as you go to grow and scale, you have to keep adding in additional lead sources, and the ideal number is 4. That number is ideal because it allows your lead generation strategy to be predictable and scalable. Your marketing is more scalable than your prospecting. Okay. So having 4 lead sources allows your business to be predictable. It allows your lead generation to be predictable and scalable. And then the other thing, the analogy I use is just the stool. If you have a one-legged stool, how long is it going to stay there? How easy is it for somebody to come and kick that out from underneath you?
Yep.
Somebody comes and, somebody inside your Sphere goes and gets your license and gets their license and starts prospecting out of your Sphere. Happens all the time.
Yep. Or farming your neighborhood.
All those things.
Yep.
We could go through the various online lead sources and the evolution that they've had over time, and how agents have done well, then not well, then well again, and things like that. But 4 lead sources ideally allows you to make those strategy changes and shifts when needed. And it also allows you to predictably plan for scalable growth. So that's why I think it's important. And then, when you're looking at this, everybody has these percentages in their business. I rarely come across somebody who gets 100% of their leads from one source. Rarely is that the case. So hopefully that helps answer your question. And there's absolutely strength in numbers.
I absolutely love that. I think that's super helpful. Now, if there's other people out there that are listening to this and they're struggling to figure out those 4 pillars, how do they decide what 4 pillars? Because if you Google lead generation for real estate, you can get hundreds of services that you can pay for. How do you help them narrow down those 4 sources?
I love you asked that. Let me skip down here. This is a quick picture. We have these worksheets that we use. And much like the business planning that we've talked about on our past Facebook Lives, we always promote that you start with where you are. You start with what's ever working for you now. What are your resources now? How much can you afford to spend on marketing now? The example of resources would be here. It says, how many contacts do you have in your database? Those are number of people that you can call to ask for referrals. That's a resource. And then you have lead generation sources. So that would be Facebook, Zillow, Circle Prospecting, all that stuff, right? So what we do is, let me give you an example. So if I were to sit down with you and we're going to teach you the lead generation model, we're going to say, Brittany, how many transactions did you close last year? You're on mute. Play along.
Sorry, 40.
All right. So you did 40 transactions last year. Where did they come from?
Sphere, Zillow, and a 33 touch program.
Okay. So we're going to list those things here, and then we're going to say, how many transactions did you get from each one of those different areas? And so you break it down.
Do 20, 10, and 10.
20, 10, and 10. You say, okay, Brittany, so what's your goal for next year?
I want to do 60 transactions.
Okay. And so if you're going to do 60 transactions, the next question is, where would you like those additional 20 transactions to come from?
Ideally, Sphere
Mhm.
or 33 touch.
Okay. And then we say, okay, well, what are the activities? Now, this is getting down the rest of the sheet here. What are the lead generation activities that you can do in those areas where you're already generating leads in order to fill the gap, in order to get from where you are now to the increased result?
Okay.
And if we look at it and we say, hey, like that would require me to be on the phone 4 hours a day now prospecting instead of 2 hours a day, we would just do a reality check. Is that realistic? And you'd say, no, probably not. I think I can go to 3 hours, but I probably can't get 4 hours a day in prospecting. We say, great. So that'll get you roughly halfway to the goal. And now the other half of the goal, we need to make up with a new lead generation strategy or different activities to those same lead generation sources in order to get us to the goal.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And here, this goes back to what we said early on in the call, which is, I think the mistake that most people do is Brittany runs over to Tracy and says, Tracy, what are you doing for lead generation that's working? And Tracy says, well, I'm doing Popeyes. And Brittany says, well, okay, great. I need to go do Popeyes. And then you go off running and you do something totally new that you've never done before. You haven't proven that it works for you. And there is a time and place for that. But to start with a brand new lead generation model that you've never done and used before, doing what others are doing, and you're then just going to plug that in and double your business overnight, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
You have to start where you are with what you've done, what works for you, and then tweak it and turn it up a couple of notches. And yes, there's still going to be a gap left over. And then that gap is a much smaller gap now to fill with something new. New activities or a new lead generation source. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because then it's kind of like baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of growth versus taking on a whole new project.
Yeah, and when we do that with folks, they're always so relieved. Like
Right.
You can just see it melting off them. Like, oh my gosh, that's it? Are you sure?
And you're like, yes.
Yeah, I'm talking about Tracy now.
Poor Tracy.
So, yeah, for sure. Well, she's a perfect example, right? She wanted to go from 20 to 30, which seems overwhelming. She's like, I have to grow my business by 50%. But then when we found out that her lead sources were primarily referrals, and then we said, well, how are you getting the referrals? She didn't prospect for them. They were just given to her. Well, they were through her husband's work. Great. What do you love to do? I love to do events. Great. Do an event at your husband's work. All she did was added one little drop of food coloring to what she's doing, and it completely changed her results.
Yep.
So
I love it.
Yep. Now, there was a little bit more to it than that, but it is that simple.
Well, and you're playing on her strengths because she's great at event planning.
And how overwhelming is it if I would have said, Tracy, go generate 200 Facebook leads a month to get to your goal? Because that's what everybody else is doing.
Yep. She would have been like, bye.
Thanks, coach.
Yeah, not doing it.
Yep. Cool. What's next?
I love that. That's so simple. Next is, I always loved the graphic. I'm probably going to make you bounce around in that
Okay.
PowerPoint, but I loved the graphic where Gary Keller talks about the 3 key areas of your lead gen. And it talks about your not Mets versus your Mets. You know what graphic I'm talking about?
I do. Let me see if I can grab it in here. Keep going. I'll grab it.
But that pretty much goes into his 36 touch. He talks about an 8x8, a 12 direct, which basically is going off of your database. Like everybody has something to start with. So if you're sitting there like, well, I don't even know where to begin, you have contacts in your phone. You have a database. Building up the names and numbers in that database is going to help you build that business. The size of your database, he says, is directly proportional to the size of your business. So if you want a bigger business and you need a bigger database, how do you set up your lead gen model so that you systematically follow up with it? And that's where that graph came in, because he says you do your 8x8 with these people, your 12 with these people, but then your 33 touch with these people.
I love it. And I didn't get the graphic that you, I think, wanted, but I can show you on this graphic how that's relevant.
That works for me.
Yep. Yeah. So you have lead generation up here, and you have relationship management and client and referral loops at the bottom. So lead generation is oftentimes people you don't know. So your 12 direct is, I'm just going to hit these people with a message once a month. It's going to be a postcard or it's going to be a Facebook post. They're just going to get hit once a month with some sort of marketing and advertising. Okay. Because you don't know them, they don't know you, and you're just trying to get your brand and name out in front of them.
Yep.
So then prospecting comes behind that, where you're now taking a person's name and phone number, you're putting it into your database. So now you've received a lead from your marketing and you've put them into your database, and your next job is to start building a relationship with them.
And that's
so
where
that's going to require a different communication plan. Something that's more than just sending them a postcard once a month or a newsletter once a month.
Yep.
You're going to have to call them, contact them, follow up with them regularly. So in the section here, in this middle section, it says leads, take them, form a relationship, and then strengthen that relationship through these communication plans. So now you have what we call an 8x8, which is a follow-up plan where you follow up with somebody 8 times in 8 weeks. And 4 of those 8 touches are phone calls, and 4 of those 8 touches are providing items of value. Buyer's guide, home values, buyer cost estimate. Really, items of value are areas of our service that we're giving them in advance of the relationship. Okay. And then down here at the bottom, you prepare contacts for a conversion, meaning at some point you're going to work with them or you're going to ask them for a referral. And then down here, it's where step 4 is where you go into a 33 touch program, where that 33 touch is going to send them emails, newsletters, and is going to schedule your phone calls to follow up with them. These are all the 33 touches are generally done with people that you already know, that know, like, and trust you, past clients, or a potential future client. So you've already built some type of relationship with them. So now you're going to touch them 33 times in a year versus 12 times in a year.
And that goes, go ahead.
No, I think did you want to show what a 33 touch looks like?
Yeah, so I built one in our system called Command, just to kind of help systematize it, because 33 touches in a year sounds overwhelming. You're going, there's 12 months in a year. How am I going to touch someone with marketing and phone calls 33 times? Or now they're actually kind of saying 36 times in a year. And it actually when you break it down and you put it in a system, it's actually not that bad. And again, at the beginning, we were chatting about that mind share problem because there's so much marketing being thrown at us all the time. That's why we need something like a 36 touch, because you really do have to constantly engage with your database, the folks that already know you and trust you. So that way, when they do have a real estate need, they think of you and not the other realtor, right? Because I mentioned that 86% have room for 1 to 2 agents. You want them to choose you, not the other agent. So under our smart plans, if you go into a library, I just filter by my name because honestly, it's easier. Naturally, when I'm on a Facebook Live, it doesn't want to work. There we go. There I am. You'll see I have a 33 touch part 1, which is the bulk of your touch plan. And you have a part 2 and you have a part 3. So part 1, you add to your clients in your database. So this is, you pick out like your top 100 of your Mets, because obviously you can't do this to all over 1,000 people in your database. But I would suggest at least starting with your top 100, unless you're building a team and you have a team of people that can do more phone calls for you. But it starts with the phone call, just the forward conversation. How are you? How have you been? How's your family? How's your job? What do you do for fun? What are your goals in the future? And then as you're talking with them, you offer them a neighborhood snapshot, which is your item of value. So it's completely free. It's a monthly email that Command sends out to your database automatically. You don't have to do anything, but add them to the smart plan. And it gives them real-time market data specific to their micro neighborhood. So it's not all of Carlisle, right? Because the west side of Carlisle is going to comp very different than the east side of Carlisle, as with most cities. So it's a micro market update just once a month. You're not spamming them with a ton of emails every month. Hopefully they say yes, get them their contact card super updated, right? So I tell people do like 5 of these a day. So it's not overwhelming. Get their contact card updated phone numbers, emails, address, choose their neighborhoods. And then you're going to add them to the monthly neighborhood smart plan. So this smart plan is linked to that. So you just add them to 33 touch. It's automatically going to add them to monthly neighborhood nurture. And then it's going to give you a task to add a 33 touch tag. You'll need that later. It's going to add a task to add them to Homekeeper, which is a free newsletter service offered through Command. It's an integration. It's going to link them to their birthday. So you want to make sure when you're getting all their updated info in that first call, have their birthday in there. If you feel weird asking them, most people have that posted on their Facebook page and their About Me section. Might sound a little stalkerish, but you got to pull out all the punches to make this work. The birthday smart plan will remind you a week before their birthday to send a card. On the day of their birthday, it will also remind you, or if you have Twilio, it'll send out an automated text and remind you to send them a phone call. So right there is several of your touches just in these first 3 smart plans.
Yeah, so just taking one step back, I want everybody to understand the importance of this. We're setting up a communication plan in the database so that we know how often to contact groups, and so that some of that communication is automated.
Yep.
So if you think about it, this is a plan for you to generate leads by staying in contact with people who know, like, and trust you.
Yep. People you already know. It's not cold calling at all.
So Brittany, if we were to wrap this in a bow, what would you tell folks about the 33 touch?
I would tell them that it's very simple to implement.
Mhm.
You can systemize it so that way the majority of those touches are automatic, including the quarterly call plan. It just tells you, hey, it's time to call them. It's been 3 months. The other two parts of the plan are super simple. One is just saying, hey, do some social posts this week.
Yeah.
You add this to yourself as a contact. And then the other one helps you plan pop buys or events. So that's a big one in MREA's 36 touch is face-to-face interactions. This takes some of that guesswork out for you. In each step, I actually give you examples
Nice.
and reminders of, hey, it's time to order your stuff. It's time to put this in your calendar. It's time to send out invites if you're doing an event. But if you're like, I don't even know what to do for a pop-by, I give you suggestions for each season.
Nice. Yeah, I love these.
That's how simple it is. On top of that, of course, I will meet with you one-on-one to help you implement a 33 touch to your database. Just so that way we can tweak it to what you like to do.
Super helpful. Yeah, and part of the reason, guys, why we're focusing on this right now is because that is the #1 lead generation source for top agents, not just today, but throughout history. So it's extremely important. Brittany, we have time for maybe one more question. Anything you want to wrap up with?
Let me pull up here. Yeah, we covered a good bit there.
Yeah, I didn't realize time flew by that fast.
It flies when you're having fun. Oh, the last bit I wanted to talk about, and I hope Julie Hess watches this because she's going to love me for saying this. But a key part of the lead gen model isn't just the lead genning. It's not just the marketing.
Wait, since you mentioned Julie's name, can I guess what it is?
Yes.
Is it knowing what to say?
Yes.
We're so predictable.
Yep. It's know your scripts and your
Know your
dialogue.
scripts.
And my favorite thing, George Kelly actually taught me this, but he's like, what is the most famous script? And everybody was like throwing out all these random things. And he's like, it's I love you.
That's cool.
And it was just to prove that we use scripts all day, every day, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
You may not have it written down, but you get to know what works with people and you phrase things a certain way to have good conversations with them. So script practice is huge, especially if you're newer in the business. But even agents that have been in the business for years do script practice.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're confident in what you say, your confidence leads to decisive action. That action takes leads and turns them into clients. If you're stumbling over your words, you're going to feel less confident, and the people you're talking to are going to feel that.
Yeah. Great job today, Brittany.
Thank you.
Loved it. Great job on the 33 touch. So guys, as we leave the call, like I said, go back and watch the prior Facebook Lives that teach you about the models, systems, why they're important, talking about your big why. We also talked about the economic model last week, lead generation model this week. So I'm assuming next week's going to be the budget model.
Yep.
All right. So we can nerd out on some numbers.
I love it.
All right. Thanks, Brittany. Have a great day, everybody. Good luck.
you.
If you ever need anything, you can reach us on our cell phones here at the office, via email, whatever works best. Oh, and if you need more information about our office and what we do here at Keller Williams of Central PA in Enola, you can go to our website at kwagentportal.com. Website's phenomenal, a ton of resources on there. And if you're watching this and you're interested in getting your real estate license, there is even a free real estate school on there as well. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming and watching. Thanks, Brittany. Great job.
See ya.
Have a great day.
Bye.